This is the biggest game of the autumn. France, South Africa, Stade de France. Saturday night under lights. We've been here before. Same stadium. 2 years ago. The 2023 World Cup quarterfinal. 29-28 for the Boks. A match people still call the greatest knockout game ever played. Tonight is different. Different season, different context. But the same question hangs in the Paris air. Can France finally solve the Springbok puzzle at home? Marseille 2022 said yes, 30-26 for France. They proved they could match Bok physicality, but the last memory here at the Stade de France belongs to South Africa. And this week, Felix Jones made it clear, no revenge narrative, no emotional baggage, just business as usual preparation. But let's be honest, for France, this is deeply emotional. Getting kicked out of your home World Cup in a quarterfinal, that cuts deep. This is their chance at redemption. So let's get into it. Chaos versus control, speed versus squeeze. This is France versus South Africa, and I'm breaking down exactly how this match will be won and lost. Here's the thing about France versus South Africa. They don't play each other often. Outside of World Cups, these fixtures are rare. We've got the 2023 quarterfinal here in Paris, 29-28 for the Boks. We've got Marseille, 2022, 30-26 for Les Bleus. That's basically it for the recent past. So, when we're trying to figure out how this match unfolds, we can't just look at head-to-head data. There isn't enough of it. Instead, we're going to use a proxy. We're looking at France's entire 2025 Six Nations campaign to understand their blueprint, how they play, what their fingerprints are, and we are doing the same thing with South Africa's Rugby Championship. 6 matches, different opponents, different conditions, but the same operating system. Now, let me be clear, Six Nations Rugby is not Rugby Championship Rugby. Different hemispheres, different weather, different opponents. We're not comparing absolutes. We're reading style. We're looking for patterns that tell us how each team approaches the game. And when you look at the numbers, the patterns are crystal clear. France lifted the Six Nations title, 21 competition points, 218 points scored, 93 conceded across 5 matches. Dominant, clinical, the best attacking team in the Northern Hemisphere. South Africa finished level with New Zealand on 19 points in the Rugby Championship, but their points differential told the story, plus 57. Tight margins, big statements. Championship Rugby played the Springboks way. 2 champions, 2 completely different philosophies about how rugby should be played. And one more thing before we dive into the blueprints. Maxime Lucu will most probably start at 9. Now, a lot of people will tell you that's a huge loss. And yes, Dupont is irreplaceable in terms of X factor. But here's what I've noticed. When Lucu plays, the French backline actually flows better. Against Ireland, he kicked brilliantly and allowed France to play off 10 instead of 9. The structure is cleaner. The execution is sharper. It's a different style, but it's not necessarily worse. Let's start with the team in blue. If I had to describe France in 2025 in one phrase, it would be this: tempo with control. Let me show you what I mean. 126 carries per match, 506 meters. But here's the critical number: 10 offloads per 100 carries. France don't just win meters, they keep the ball alive. That's why you see 6 tries per game. That's why they're averaging 43.6 points per match in the Six Nations. This is rugby played at pace, but it's not chaos for chaos' sake. Look at the defensive numbers: 86% tackle completion, 8.2 penalties conceded per match. And here's the key: Shaun Edwards is the defense coach. Aggressive, relentless, one of the best in the world. This French defense doesn't just tackle, it hunts. It forces errors. It turns defense into attack. Only 5.7% of their tackles are dominant, but they don't need to smash you backwards. They're system sound. They let you run into their shape, and then they sting you on the counter. Lineout volume is high, 13.2 wins per game. That's a massive platform. And France use it differently than most teams. They're not grinding you with the maul. They are going fast off the top, quick strike plays, making you read early, making you commit before you're set. The other fingerprint? Width. France shift the ball 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in a single possession to find space. They disguise where their 9 wants to ignite the attack. One phase it's narrow, next phase it's edge to edge. You can't just fold and wait. Now, with Louw starting, that tempo actually becomes more efficient. He's a platform builder, quick ball, excellent kicking game, sharp pass selection, and critically, he allows Romain Intermac or Mathieu Jalibert at 10 to run the show. And that brings us to the backline threats. Thomas Ramos at 15, one of the best attacking fullbacks in the game. Veteran center Gaël Ficou, who's been there and done it. Damian Penaud on the wing. And then there's Louw Bielle-Biarrey, arguably one of the best, fastest wingers on earth right now. Absolutely electric. This backline is still incredibly dangerous. And with Louw creating cleaner structure, they might actually be more cohesive. But there's a vulnerability. The scrum. Against the All Blacks last year, France's scrum wasn't great. Cyril Colombe couldn't cope with Tamati Williams' pressure on the front row. And now they're facing the Springbok pack, a pack that scrums to win penalties. That's a genuine pressure point. So here's what France will try to do on Saturday night. They'll kick, but not to just kick. They'll kick to move the Springbok backfield. 50-22 looks, grubbers behind the edge when the wingers bite up. They'll force South Africa's defensive backfield to choose because the Boks can't keep 3 players back on every phase. They'll vary their exits. Box kick from the 9, spiral from the 10, left foot from the 15, and at least one run exit per half to change the chase picture. And most importantly, they'll keep the ruck speed high. You won't beat South Africa by inviting jackal contests. You win by keeping numbers low, winning the flow, and popping late offloads. That 10 per 100 carry offload rate is their DNA. Keep it, relocate it, make those dominant Bok hits arrive a step too late. France will also target the line out. Fast off the top strikes in the red zone instead of slow maul attrition. Use decoy runners to create gaps, then hit the edge before the Bok defense can slide. And discipline. This is the weapon people forget. France concede 8.2 penalties per match in the Six Nations. That's very, very tidy. The Springbok scoreboard depends on piggyback penalties. So don't nibble at offsides on midfield phases. Let the Bok 9 kick and win the next aerial contest instead. But they also need to survive the scrum battle. If the Boks start winning penalties at scrum time, the scoreboard pressure becomes brutal. If France can execute that blueprint, they put themselves in a very good position to win. But there's a problem. The team in green and gold has a blueprint too, and it's evolved. South Africa are about 3 things: field position, collision, aerial squeeze. But here's what's changed. Since Tony Brown came in as attack coach, the Springboks play more expansively. The pack offloads now. They have a high offload percentage too. This isn't just Jacques Nienaber's defensive brutality anymore. This is a team that can hurt you in multiple ways. Let's start with the kicks. 30 per match. Same volume as France, but completely different intent. France kick to create. South Africa kick to control. They kick to start rugby where they want it, between your 5-meter line and your 15. That's the sweet spot. That's where the maul lives. That's where the scrum penalty comes from. That's where the scoreboard starts ticking. Now look at the collision numbers. 10% dominant tackles. That's not just stopping you, that's moving you backwards. That's putting you on the floor in a position where your support can't clear effectively. That's creating jackal opportunities. But here's the interesting part. Their tackle completion rate in the Rugby Championship was the lowest in the competition. Now, does that matter against an attacking team like France? Absolutely. If the Boks are missing tackles, France's offload game becomes even more dangerous. 1 missed tackle plus 1 offload equals a line break. And here's the scary part. The Boks almost never drop the ball. 1.2 turnovers lost per match. Best in class. When South Africa have possession, they keep it until they decide to kick it away. Their attack efficiency is almost identical to France on a per-carry basis, 1.4 meters per carry. But they beat more defenders per carry, 23 per 100. That's because when the Boks do play, they play direct, they play decisive. And now, with Tony Brown's influence, they offload too. The place where they give you a chance? Discipline. 9.3 penalties per match. That's higher than France. But they balance it with 85% try conversion. So when they score, they convert. The scoreboard pressure is relentless. And then there's the scrum. This is their weapon. With Wilco, Louw, Thomas du Toit, and Malcolm Marx in the front row, and also the rest of the front row depth, they can dominate set piece. Oxenshire is injured and unlikely to play, but honestly, to me, Louw is even scarier. This front row will hunt penalties. So what does the Springbok blueprint look like for Saturday? Territory first. Kick to the 5 to 15 meter channel. Start the maul set. 2 maul penalties per half plus 1 or 2 scrum penalties equals 9 to 12 points. Easy. That's before you even score a try. Chase system detail. This is not negotiable. Contestable length needs to be 28 to 32 meters. Hang time needs to be right. And the first ruck after the regain equals 1 pass only. Let France concede the penalty trying to slow it. Hit and stick. France live at 10 offloads per 100 carries. So the Boks will emphasize double hits where the second man captures the ball, not the legs. If offloads drop from 12.6 per game to 7, France's meters per carry becomes much more honest. And that 10% dominant tackle rate turns into turnover ball. Scrum dominance. Target the French front row. Win 2 to 3 penalties, possibly even more. Turn those into points or field position. Penalty discipline is the hinge. The biggest danger for South Africa is feeding France's launching lineout. They need to aim for sub-8 penalties, below France's baseline. Starve those 13 lineouts won per game. And finally, kick variation. Not just volume. Add 2 early spirals to grass to make France turn. Once you've stretched the backfield, go back to hang and contest. You want their back 3 guessing, not stepping into counterattack. If South Africa can execute that blueprint, they edge a tight one. But here's the thing. Both blueprints can't work. Someone's style gets disrupted. Someone's system breaks down. And that brings us to the 3 battlegrounds. This match will be decided in 3 areas. Battleground number 1, the aerial chain. Both teams kick 30 times per match, but the intent is completely different. The Springboks use kicks to force structure, hang time, contestable length, trap the receiver, then the chase arrives. The contest happens, and the next 3 phases becomes critical. If the Boks win 55% of those contests and pin France above the 40-meter line, it funnels France into more exits and fewer launch lineouts. France use kicks to create chaos, crossfields, nudges behind a rushing edge, tempo kicks from the halfback that force the defense to scramble. If France flip 2 or 3 early aerials, especially with a quick counter shape involving the back row and tip passes, the Boks are suddenly defending broken field. And with that low tackle completion rate, missed tackles turn into line breaks. With Louw's kicking game being so sharp, France's aerial variety could be the difference. More tactical, more calculated. Early aerials decide the emotional tone of this match. Period. Battleground number 2, gain line versus continuity. The Springboks post 10% dominant tackles and 23 defenders beaten per 100 carries themselves. This is a collision game they expect to win. France counter with 10 offloads per 100 carries and 9 clean breaks per match. Their best antidote to collision dominance is never letting the collision finish. Tips before contact, 2-man latch with immediate pull-out offload, width-to-width shifts to unseat the Bok fold. But South Africa offload now too. Tony Brown's influence. If both teams are offloading, it becomes a question of who executes better under pressure. If South Africa can smother the offload and win the collision, France's attack becomes one-dimensional. If France can keep the ball alive and shift the point of attack, the Bok defense gets stretched, and with that lower tackle completion rate, gaps open up. Battleground 3, set-piece dominance. This is where South Africa could win it. The scrum. France concede 8.2 penalties per match overall, but at scrum time, they've struggled against physical packs. The Springbok front row will target this relentlessly. If the Boks earn 2 to 3 scrum penalties plus 1 to 2 maul penalties per half, their scoreboard pressure is brutal even without high possession. 4 to 5 penalties per half equals 12 to 15 easy points. Add 2 tries converted at 85%, and you're at 26 to 29 points without dominating the game. France need to survive the scrum battle. If they can keep scrum penalties to 1 or less, they stay in the fight. These 3 battlegrounds, aerial chain, gain line versus continuity, set piece dominance, that's where this match gets decided. Now let's talk about the bench, because this could be the biggest factor of all. France trialed a bomb squad in the Six Nations, and it worked. They've bought into the idea of fresh legs and fresh energy in the last 30 minutes. But South Africa, they actually went with a 5-3 split for most of their dominant wins in the Rugby Championship. And even in that 2023 World Cup quarterfinal, we saw what happened. Oxenshire came on, scrum penalties, Andre Pollard slotting the threes, the bench strangled France. This time, Oxenshire is injured, but Wilco Louw is even scarier. Thomas du Toit provides depth. That front row rotation is elite. And here's the critical question: match conditioning. France haven't had any warm-up games, no match conditioning as a team for a while. They sent a B team against the All Blacks in July. This is a massive test coming in cold. Look at what happened to Ireland last week. Similar predicament. They went into the game against the All Blacks and competed for 60 minutes. They looked the better team for 50 to 60 minutes and shattered all assumptions of being underdone or coming in cold. But then the All Blacks bench came on. Up the intensity, up the tempo, and in that last 20 minutes, Ireland looked gassed. The bench showed how underdone they were. Could we see the same here? France dominating the first 60 minutes, playing fast, scoring tries, building a lead. And then the Springboks bench comes on, dominating scrums, winning penalties at will, breaking open defenses, sucking the life out of the French defense and their belief, posting a massive points differential in the last 20 minutes. Not probable, but definitely possible. Now, the counter to that is England. They showed last week that lack of game time isn't necessarily a problem. They look sharp. They look ready. So it's incredibly hard to predict. But the Springbok bench has won them more tight games than any other factor. And if France start to tire, that bench could be devastating. Now let's talk about what the first 10 minutes will tell us. The first 10 minutes of a test match are a conversation. Both teams are asking questions, testing theories, seeing what the other team prepared for. Here's what to watch for. If France are dominating the game early, you'll see an early 50-22 look. Maybe they don't nail it, but they'll show it to stretch the Springbok backfield. You'll see fast ball off the top of the line out, quick strikes before South Africa can set their fold. And you'll see no cheap penalties, France staying disciplined in the midfield, letting the Boks kick and backing themselves to win the next aerial contest. Most importantly, you'll see the scrum holding. If France can match the Boks scrum in the first 10 minutes, which I definitely think they will, psychologically that's huge. If South Africa are dominating early, you'll see a couple of aerial regains, clean contests, the chase arriving on time. You'll see one scrum penalty or one maul penalty earned in the French 22. 3 points on the board early, and you'll see France forced into 2 box kick exits. Predictable, under pressure, giving South Africa exactly what they want. The first 10 minutes won't decide the match, but they'll tell you whose blueprint is working. They'll tell you who's comfortable and who's scrambling. And in a one-score game, that early comfort can be everything. Let me give you 3 scenarios. All are plausible based on the data and the context. The first scenario, France by 5-9. France keep their penalties to 7. They win half the aerials. They hit their offload number. The Springboks spend more time going phase kick without long red zone sits. France's launch variety from lineouts tells. Louw executes the game plan perfectly. Bielle-Biarrey scores twice. Penaud finishes in the corner. The Stade erupts. Most importantly, the French scrum survives. They don't give away cheap penalties, and Shaun Edwards' defense forces 2 or 3 turnovers at critical moments. Final score, France 27, South Africa 20. The second scenario, South Africa by 3-7. The aerial game bites. 2 to 3 scrum penalties plus 1 or 2 maul penalties translates to 12 points. The collision economy turns France's offload tap down. The Springboks convert tries at 85%. One big Colby moment. One scrum penalty in the red zone that becomes 7 points. The Bok defense holds for the last 10 minutes. The French scrum cracks under pressure. And without that platform, their attack becomes predictable. Final score, South Africa 26, France 21. Third scenario, South Africa by 15-30. This is the underdone scenario. France come out emotional, fired up, playing fast. They dominate the first 50 to 60 minutes. They might even be ahead at the 60-minute mark. But then the Springbok bench comes on. Fresh legs in the pack, and France start to tire. The match conditioning isn't there. They've been playing at 100 miles per hour for 60 minutes with no warm-up games to build that base. The scrum penalties start coming. 3 points, then 3 more, then a maul try, then another. The Boks bench breaks open the game. The points differential blows out. France look gassed. Their defense starts missing tackles, and the Boks, who've been battle-hardened through the Rugby Championship and a game against Japan last weekend, strangle the life out of France. Final score, South Africa 45, France 20. Not the most probable scenario, but with a cold France team and a battle-hardened Boks side with an elite bench, definitely possible. All 3 of these are on the table. That's what makes this match so hard to predict. Here's what I know. France come in emotional. This is their opportunity to get revenge for being kicked out of a home World Cup. Their narrative among the French has been building for 2 years. This is personal. The Springboks won't have a similar psychological edge. They're in a good place. Rassie Erasmus will have to artificially create a narrative to get his players to a dark place to tap that emotion. Will he be able to? If any team can, it will be the Boks. If any team can beat the Boks, it will be the French. If any team can win tight, tough games in hostile environments, it's the Boks. So this game is going to be on a knife's edge. I genuinely have no idea who will win, but I have to go with South Africa, purely because of the battle-hardened path to this game. They literally played a strong team against Japan last weekend. They have match practice. France is coming in with no games. Having said that, the English showed how they didn't seem to have any problems with little to no game time. So it's incredibly hard predicting a winner. But I have to go with South Africa by 3 or 5. The scrum could be the difference. The bench could be the difference. The match conditioning could be the difference. 24 to 21 or 26 to 21. Something tight, something tense, something that goes down to the last 5 minutes. But here's the truth. If you told me France won by 6 because their system was perfect all night and Louw orchestrated a masterclass, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me South Africa won by 10 because they strangled the game with set-piece dominance, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me the Boks won by 30 and they broke open the play in the last 20 minutes, I wouldn't be shocked either. That's the beauty of this fixture. Stade de France, Saturday night, France versus South Africa. Thanks for watching Rugby from the Stands. Hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts and your predictions in the comments below. I want to hear who you think wins and why. And I'll see you after the match for the full breakdown. Let's go!